Hi again, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Ask the Lawyer. I'm Rob Rosenthal with AskTheLawyers.com. Today we're going to ask the lawyer about rideshare. Rideshare companies like Uber and Lyft are becoming more and more popular, but more and more people are using them. But with all that added ridership, there can be issues. And then the question is, what are your rights when it comes to a rideshare company? Well, that's why we're going to ask the lawyer. Here to help us is attorney Kathy McArthur of the McArthur Law Firm in Macon, Georgia. Kathy, thank you for making some time for us today.
Hey, Rob, it's good to be here.
So we're talking about rideshare, and if you're in an accident, you're injured, you're in a rideshare car, first of all, who's responsible? Is it the driver? Is it the rideshare company? Somebody else? Where do we go?
Well, it's just like any other kind of wreck. It could be that the driver of the Uber that you're riding in is not at fault in the wreck. So if the driver of that vehicle is not at fault, but someone else runs into that vehicle and you're hurt, well, it's the fault of the at-fault driver. On the other hand, if the Uber or Lyft driver that is driving the car that you're in and you're hurt and he runs a stop sign or she does something careless and causes a wreck with another vehicle or hurt, then that is an area of the law that's really developing. It shouldn't be a question in my mind, but it is, because Uber and Lyft, they actually contract with these drivers to drive for them, but the drivers are the ones who actually use their personal vehicles, and they provide the insurance coverage. So the question then becomes, are they employees of the company for whom they're getting these rides? And Uber and Lyft say they're not employees and that they are not responsible for their driving, that they're providing an avenue for the connection of the driver and the vehicle with the passenger, but they're not the employer of the driver. So they say they are not responsible for the bad driving of the driver of the Lyft or Uber vehicle. So their company would not be standing behind what happened with insurance coverage or the value of the company. If they have numerous speeding tickets or they shouldn't be driving, Uber and Lyft can be held responsible in that setting because they do have a duty to check out these drivers before they make them part of their team and give them access to their computer software that allows people to access the drivers and the two to be put together. They have to have done background checks, driving checks, and to be sure that the people who are driving these vehicles don't have criminal records and don't have a terrible driving record. So if they have not done that, then the company would be responsible. So there's a lot to it. Sometimes they are responsible. Sometimes the company is not responsible. The driver is always responsible if he's been the careless one.
It seems to me that, and this maybe you were referring to, there seems to be an interesting gray area that if the company's saying, oh, you're not hiring Uber, you're hiring the driver. But when I hire a rideshare, I'm not looking for John Doe. I'm just going to Uber and saying, okay, I need a ride. So that's
Right.
An interesting area there.
It is. It's really an interesting thing because if you think about, if you get into a taxi, well, the taxi is owned by a company that has bunches of taxis, so that the drivers of their taxis are their employees. So the taxi company would be responsible for their drivers driving because these are their employees. It's a different setting in terms of Uber drivers and Uber and Lyft contending that those drivers are not their employees. So it's something that's developing, and I think it's going to come under regulation by states. That and things like scooters and electric bikes and all these things that you're allowed access to through your phone, through computer software, but yet then you don't have the rights that you have if you went with just a regular taxi. And people don't think about that at all. I mean,
Right.
You are not aware of it, and they don't tell you when you make your choice to go with Uber or Lyft or a regular company that has taxis. And I'm not saying that all taxi companies have good insurance,
Right.
because a lot of them have terrible insurance. So
Yeah.
it's a mess.
So
It's really
it occurs to me too that an automobile accident is not the only potential danger. When you're in a rideshare, you hear stories about kidnappings or assaults or things like that. Is there, in your mind, some responsibility on the rideshare company at that point if something like that happens?
Well, it's just like with anything else. It's almost like a one bite law, but that doesn't make it. That's not. That doesn't sound good to say that. But if Uber has done all the background checks that they can do, they've done their due diligence. They've required their drivers to consent to criminal searches. They have asked. They've done everything they could to determine that this person is a safe person for people to be riding with. And then this person has a passenger that they rape or that they kill. Is Uber responsible for that? Well, they would not be responsible for criminal activity of a driver unless they had not done proper background checks and had not done the things that a company should do to put someone in that position. So it's criminal conduct, really. A company is not responsible to anticipate criminal conduct from someone unless they had reason to think that that person was capable of that.
If I'm in another vehicle and I'm in an accident with a rideshare vehicle, is my only recourse at that point towards the driver's insurance, the way things are set up right now?
Well, it's just like the passenger. It could be that it's only against the driver and the driver's insurance. On the other hand, if it turns out the driver has a terrible driving record, shouldn't have even been being a person who was put out there by Uber and connected to a passenger such that they wouldn't have been there, then Uber or Lyft, if it's a Lyft driver, would be responsible. It's unclear, and you need a lawyer to actually delve into it, push into it, because if the company is responsible, and I think that's what you're getting at with these questions, if the company's responsible, there's going to be a lot more insurance available. And if you've got a bad injury or a death, there's going to need to be a lot of insurance. And sometimes the drivers of the vehicles are not carrying enough insurance, are not required by the company to carry enough insurance. And maybe they're required to carry $100,000, but pretty much any bad injury is going to require more than $100,000 as a value.
Right. When you talk about truck drivers or other commercial drivers, there are limits on how long they can drive at a certain period of time and how they're able to drive on, without a certain amount of rest. Is there anything like that with rideshare drivers, as far as you know?
No, there's no regulation of rideshare drivers in terms of any kind of physical checks. Truck drivers are required to undergo a physical every year and to be certified healthy, and things like sleep apnea and stuff like that are required to be documented. And, as far as any problems with drugs and alcohol, rehab, any of that stuff, they're required to take care of those types of things. There just isn't any regulation yet of rideshare companies to that degree. And, it's the kind of thing that taxi companies just scream bloody murder, because they've paid a lot to be taxi companies, and they've done a lot to be out there. And now these companies coming in and not being regulated and just putting people out there and just saturating the market has really hurt them, and they're not regulated. So right. It's really it is a mess.
It sounds like it's complicated and ever-changing, so even more of a reason to have an attorney who can help you navigate those waters. Absolutely.
And sometimes, and I've heard horror stories about these situations where the Uber cannot be held responsible or Lyft cannot be held responsible, and the driver has inadequate insurance, and there's just not anything you can do about it. So it's important to have a lawyer who's going to push and explore every avenue to get adequate compensation when there's a serious injury.
Great. Kathy, thank you for your time and all the helpful information. I appreciate that.
I'm happy to do it anytime, Rob. Thank you.
That's going to do it for this episode of Ask the Lawyer. If you're ready to get more information about rideshare laws, or you're ready to choose a lawyer that lawyers choose, please visit askthelawyer.com and take a second to click on the button at the bottom of the screen to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you'll know about future episodes of Ask the Lawyer. Thanks for watching. I'm Rob Rosenthal with askthelawyer.com.